Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Business Spotlight series. Today it's my pleasure to have Alan Lowry with me. Alan is CEO of Environmental Street Furniture, or ESF Limited. Alan, great to see you. Delighted you could join us. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great, thanks. Really good. Unfortunately, the sunshine's left us for a while, so hopefully it'll come back over the weekend.
Yeah, hopefully. Why don't you share with us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for?
Okay. As you've said, my name's Alan Lowry. My company is based in Newton Abbey, called Environmental Street Furniture. We develop, design, and supply outdoor furniture products. So that's everything from litter bins, benches, bollards, lighting columns, bus shelters, stuff like that. We've four divisions within the company. That's the main generic division. We have a division specifically directed at theme parks, and we supply theme parks all around the world. We've had the privilege of supplying people like Disney, Universal Studios, Six Flags, Warner Brothers World, Legoland, people like that. Right as far away as Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia, and locally to home, obviously, people like Alton Towers and even some locally within Northern Ireland. We have a security division to our business, which provides perimeter security street furniture, so like crash-tested bollards that would stop vehicle incursions into public areas. We've done a lot of those locally, places like Windsor Park, the SSA Arena, but we've also done them nationally, places like Dubai Arena, wow. Which is one of our biggest jobs to date we've ever done. And that's been followed on by us doing work with Dubai and their metro stations and making them more safe for pedestrians. Yeah. And then finally, we have a smart division, which looks at smart technologies. So we integrate solar technology, wind technology, and we look at using recycled products. And that's very much a focus on our business at the minute. Sustainability is such a big buzzword now, and we don't just want to pay lip service to it. We actually want to do it. So from that perspective, so it's similar products sold in slightly different ways to a slightly different audience.
Fantastic. And having been in the Dubai Arena and been in Dubai many times, I've obviously walked past your products and didn't even know they came from just down the road from me. So fantastic. I love hearing stories about this from local companies that you're not really aware of. You maybe have heard of them or seen them on the radar, and suddenly you find out, oh, they're supplying all over the world. That's fantastic. Really well done. Really good job. So you mentioned a few different customers there, but who's an ideal customer? And I suppose if you've got these four divisions, do you have an different ideal customer for each division?
I think because of the different divisions and because of the different geography, our ideal customer changes. We're ideally looking for someone who's wanting a solution to a problem. And that's really where we fit in. So we're not a business that's about supplying generic standard type products. We're about a business who wants to work with a client who says, look, I have an issue. Maybe it's vehicles getting into areas where the public are. Maybe it's people's mobile phones discharging and not being able to charge them up. So we want to be able to do it. And we had that exact example with a theme park in Orlando where they found that kids were actually leaving the park a few years ago because their mobile phones were dying and they couldn't be on Snapchat and they couldn't be in various things. So on the back of that, I actually developed a solar powered charging bench that they could deploy around the park. And when you wanted to sit in the bench, you just literally sat the phone on the bench beside you and it charged while you rested in the park. So the customers vary dependent on who they are, where they are, and what their issues are. But ideally, we're there to help them with a solution to their problem.
Brilliant. And you know, what's been your biggest learning since you've been on this business owner journey?
I think there's a lot of learnings. I have owned my own business now for 12 years, and I was in business for, well, over 20 years before that for various other people. So I had a really good understanding, I thought, of business. Yeah. But working for someone else and working for yourself are two very, very different things, as anyone who's done it will always know. I think the first thing I would say about it is that you really need to be passionate about what you do. If you don't have that passion, it's going to be very hard to get success because there's going to be a lot of knockbacks as you go along. You really need to lean into the journey. You know, it's not something you can stand back from. You've got to jump in with both feet and focus on where you are at the present. You know, things that have gone on the day before, things that are going to happen the next day. That's all well and good, but you've really got to focus on where you are in that day to make sure that you're going to get the ultimate success of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Fantastic. And you know, when you were growing up, did you always want to be a business owner? You always think, here, I'm going to have my own business someday? or is this just
I
something you
didn't,
ended
yeah,
up
I
in?
didn't really. I mean, my dad was in business, and was involved in similar type products to what I was, working for someone else as well, not on his own. I think when I was at school, the two things I excelled at were maths and geography. So I either wanted to be an accountant or a travel agent.
Yeah.
Was sort of my aspirations. And interestingly enough, when you run your own global business like I do, you're both an accountant and a travel agent, as well as many other things. So it's quite good that what started off early as a passion, I've really been able to integrate into my whole business journey.
Fantastic. And what are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome in this journey?
Um, Loneliness can be quite a big thing for business owners, particularly on their own. And my wife and I own a business between us, and we talk about things regularly. But you always have that. I think people call it the imposter syndrome. And I think it's very, very easy when you've worked for such a big company. And my previous employer employed over 1,500 people, so there
Yeah.
was no shortage of people to talk to bounce off, and stuff like that. When you're on that, when you're on your own, that's quite difficult. And I think it is something that people don't realize, maybe, whenever they set up their own business, that you do have those issues that you have to deal with. So thankfully, it's not something that's held us back. I've been very active in networking, meeting a lot of new people. And the other thing that what we've done as a small business, and again, one that's not very well known, is to apply for lots of awards, because that credibility is really what helps to maybe get away from a bit of that imposter syndrome. And you can hang your hat on the fact that you've been measured against other businesses and peers in your sector, or in business in general, and you've done well against them. So we would be very active in that field as well. And in the last 2 weeks, we've actually just won two more awards locally as well. So
Fantastic.
it is something that we really do put a lot of time and effort into.
Congratulations. Tell me what those awards were. That's great.
Well, both of them are interesting enough in sustainability. So one of them is the Federation of Small Businesses in Northern Ireland, who have over 6,000 local members here. And we applied for and won their sustainability award for 2024. And
Right.
the other one is Business Eye, which who would be a local magazine published here. And again, with their sustainability awards, we won the Innovation in Sustainability, for the work we've been doing around integrating solar technology and wind technology into our street furniture. So those are both just over the last 2 weeks. And in fact, next Thursday, we're at the Irish News Business Awards, where we've also been shortlisted in their sustainability section for this year as well.
Fantastic. Well, every good wish for that, and
Thank
real
you.
big congratulations on those latest awards. That's brilliant. And it's interesting that you touched on those two things about the loneliness, but also awards, because with Action Coach, that's two things that we see for business owners. The Action Coach community helps bring lots of business owners for that networking that you talked about, that community helping each other. But we also have a huge awards ceremony, and we just had that last month over in England, called BizX. So some really key speakers at that, like folks from the Dragon's Den and stuff like that there. I don't want to drop names, but different ones there. Anybody who knows BizX, it's on every year. And it's putting businesses forward for awards is a really good way to get community, but get attention as well. And
Absolutely.
I guess it's every time you get an award, it just motivates you even more.
It does. It does, absolutely, for sure.
Fantastic. So in this journey, what have you learned about yourself?
I've learned, never take anything personally. It's very difficult when you own your own business to not think if someone does something against you, or somebody doesn't pay a bill, or somebody looks over you for somebody else, that you take it personally. I think it's important to not do that. I think also never make assumptions.
Yeah.
Because I think, I would have been, and still am, a very trusting person. If we're going to work with somebody, I believe there needs to be a level of integrity and trust there. But don't make assumptions that they're in the same hymn sheet as you are.
Yeah.
And that's always a challenge. And I think, growing up, I was in the Boy Scouts, and grew up through them. Their motto is, the leader stands up and says, "Scouts, do your best," and they reply, "We will do our best."
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that I've really learned. Whatever it is you put your mind to, do it as well as you can. Don't go half-hearted into things, because in the end, you're not going to get the success out of it that you want to get.
Totally. And brilliant shares. Yes. Be prepared. I remember that motto as well from the scouting days. So fantastic. Tell me this, who inspires you in business?
I think that's a difficult one. I get involved a lot in networking opportunities, as I mentioned earlier. I also do a lot of work outside of my own employment. So I volunteer as an export champion for the Department of Business and Trade. I also sit on the Prime Minister's Small Business Council. I chair the Federation of Small Businesses in Northern Ireland, and previously I've been in the board of both the IOD and the Northern Ireland Chamber. So one of the reasons that I did that was because the people who were on there were successful people in their own rights.
Yeah.
And I feel I learned a lot more from them. When you look at the Richard Bransons, Elon Musk's, and stuff of this world, they're absolutely huge operations or huge businesses. That doesn't necessarily have a direct tangible effect on what I want to do and how I want to do it. So I've always worked in the principle of looking at people who are successful more closer to home, and just seeing how I can maybe learn from them, or learn from their mistakes, or whatever that looks like. So I wouldn't say there's anyone in particular, but certainly that would be my motto with regards to that.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, Alan. I love that as well. As you know, Business Spotlight is a global podcast. Action coaches in over 84 countries or so, and different coaches do it right across the world. But what I love hearing is doing it locally here with business owners like yourself, and they say, "Do you know who inspired me? It was my parents who had their own business, or it's the man or lady 2 doors down that ran their own business." And I just love that. So that's a fantastic share. Um, so in terms of motivation and stuff like that, you've obviously been very self-motivated to go out, start your own business. It's been so successful, supplying globally. But is there anything that you do to keep that motivation going? Are there favorite books you turn to, favorite podcasts you listen to, anything like that?
I would be the first to admit I'm not a great reader. I'll read stuff on my phone, or I'll read trade magazines before I'll tend to read books. I've probably got upwards of 30 books sitting in my study at home, which I've started to read, generally on an airplane going somewhere,
Yeah.
and never completed. I just find it difficult. It's maybe the way my mind works, but I do find it difficult to do that. Again, with podcasts too, a lot of them give out fantastic information, but I tend to jump sort of from one to the next with those, with regards to what I listen to. So there's nothing necessarily specific. There is a lot of different things that feed into that help to motivate. But I think if you're in sales, which ultimately is what we're in, I think you get motivated by your successes, and you get motivated even if it's a success of getting a meeting with someone new. Just before we come on this call this morning, I was reaching out to an architect in Singapore who's just been appointed on a job that I would really like to do some work on.
Yeah.
So I've written an email to them to introduce our business, introduce us, introduce what we've done in the past, in the hope of setting up a meeting with them. So that aspiration and motivation will come from them coming back saying, "Yeah, let's get together and have a chat about that." It may well end up me being on a plane to Singapore, but it's that type of job that's worth doing that, and that's really where a lot of our motivation has really come from.
Totally. Well, there's an awful lot worse places you could go to than Singapore.
But true,
I've
it is.
been
That's true.
there many times. Beautiful, some beautiful architecture around
There
there.
is, there
So
is absolutely,
amazing.
absolutely.
I'm not sure if you're interested in Grand Prix, but maybe you can dovetail it with when the Grand Prix is there.
But well, funny I am, and my new son-in-law has talked me into going to Barcelona in about 3 weeks' time to the Grand Prix. So
Very good.
I've been at a number of the stadiums over the years, but I've never been there when the actual race has been on. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that in a few weeks' time.
Fantastic. Well, enjoy that. So, what does the future look like for Environmental Street Furniture Limited for yourself? And what would you see as the main challenges going forward?
I think probably about 2 or 3 years ago, around the same time as COVID hit us, I was looking at the business, because with any business you set up, and particularly the way we've driven this business, it was very much about me. And even though we had 11 staff, at that stage with 7, we've now got 11. I needed to really start stepping back from that a bit, and that's a big challenge for someone who's been very much at the driving end of that. So we appointed internally a new sales director. We looked at how we could widen the load sort of thing, because a lot of it was getting to me and was getting clogged up with me because I wasn't in the country or it wasn't available and stuff. So
Yeah.
we really needed to make a conscientious effort. We brought a couple of non-exec directors in, one to look at marketing and strategy, and the other to look at the finance aspects around that. And we've implemented a lot of the suggestions that they gave us at that time to do it. So I think, the future looks like, I'm not getting any younger. I'm in my mid-50s now. We have a lot of young staff in now who we're looking to train and looking to get involved in a lot of the aspects predominantly that I would have looked after. So
Yeah.
I think it's very much about that next generation and about making sure that the business is in good hands. And passionate, proactive hands going forward as well, that they can buy into that.
Fantastic. And it sounds like you're not alone, where you've been through that experience of the business owner being like the bottleneck. We find that an awful lot with our clients, and it looks like you've been very proactive in resolving that, and every success going forwards, like I say.
Thank you.
Sounds great to be bringing those younger ones up through the business, getting them trained, getting that passion, motivation into them as well. So excellent. Last couple of things then before we wrap up. What would you say to anyone thinking of going into business for themselves?
Don't do it. No, I'm only joking. I thought I understood business. As I say, I worked for a number of businesses for 20 years before I set up my own company. But I was actually quite naive, to be honest with you. And I think that level of, I looked at business and I understood this, but in my previous employer, if I needed a mobile phone, I just rang someone. If I needed a new laptop, I just rang someone. If I needed a flight to go somewhere, I just rang someone. When it's your own business, that someone is you.
Yeah.
And I think you need to realize that, so you're not going to work 36 or 40 hours a week to get a business up and running initially. You're probably going to work double that, sometimes even more. So as I said earlier, I think that's why there's a real passion needs to be in it. Do something that you enjoy. There's a saying goes that if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I do feel that myself quite often. Now there's some days where you're going to get down and there's issues around things like cash flow or finance, and there's so many global things affect businesses now. Businesses become such more of a global issue rather than a local issue as it would have been previously. But that's grand, as long as you encompass that, and as long as you can work your way through that, I think it's good. So I would just say understand as much as you can about what you're getting into, but also don't be naive about it. Speak to people who've done it, because they'll be happy to give you the true story, warts and all, really.
Brilliant. Great advice. And you're like me, you have a 5 at the beginning of your birthday. And
Yeah.
if we could roll the clock back, turn back time, what a gift that would be. What was the best advice that you would give to an 18-year-old Alan?
I have a saying that someone used to say to me all the time: it's better to have tried and failed than failed to try. And I think with regards to that, I do a lot of volunteering work with people like Young Enterprise.
Yep.
I go in and speak in the Ulster University Business School to their marketing and their entrepreneurship students. If you feel there's something you should do, just do it. Don't be adverse to it. We have had a very controlled education system here, which is very much looking at, if you look at the grammar schools, it very much pushes people into doing law or medicine or stuff like that, and it's really been an adverse way around entrepreneurs. So I think, to me as an 18-year-old, or to any 18-year-old, if you have a passion, if you feel you'd like to do something, just try it. Look for the necessary help you need and just get on with it and just do it.
Fantastic. Great advice. Great shares, Alan. Has been a pleasure having you on today. I really appreciate your time, and our community is bound to benefit from all the nuggets that you've shared. Finally, every success going forwards, and been great to have you. Thank you so much indeed.
Thanks very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And talk to you soon.
Thank you.